Most of you are happy to be losers part-time.
I'm about to share with you some incredibly powerful psychological tricks to make a woman chase you.
I was no bullshit on average at least 3 to 4 times a day.
Probably than I've ever been in my life, and I haven't been taking antidepressants for a whole year.
If you're suppressing masculinity, you're going to bring on hard times.
If you were active on YouTube over the summer, you may have seen some of these videos, or at least videos like them. They're videos in which an alpha male influencer, dressed sort of like me, talks to his viewers about his success, wealth, and his woman, sometimes all three. This part of the internet is known as the manosphere, which spreads anti-feminist rhetoric while promising to teach young men how to improve themselves. Enter Andrew Tate, who made a name for himself this summer for his viral YouTube and TikTok clips, where he'd say outrageous things about masculinity and femininity for attention, but then market himself as a surrogate father to help young men improve themselves through his program called Hustlers University.
Hustlers University is the greatest thing that exists on the face of the planet for people who are trying to escape the matrix. I will show you how, but you still have to do the work.
Now, as harmless as he may seem, the tactics used by manosphere influencers, and Andrew Tate in particular, parallel many of the methods used by cult leaders, which are predatory in nature and work to execute control on their followers. To demonstrate this, we'll see what the manosphere really is. We'll look at Stephen Hassan's bite model, which is used to identify certain cults. And finally, we'll see if Andrew Tate really does fit into the bite model.
We are now around soft men in hard times.
In an essay on men's gender politics, Michael Mesner points out a critical point during the 20th century. After radical economic reform during the early 1980s, the prominence of women working grew rapidly, be it in the service sector or the professional sector. Now, while professional men were largely unaffected, those in the working class struggled to compete in a more competitive labor market. The idea of the male breadwinner became far less achievable, and male insecurities grew. Mesner points to this shift as the decline of men, which many anti-feminists cite as the foundation for their beliefs. In her study on masculinities in the manosphere, David Ging identifies how hegemonic masculinities are central to this online culture. Hegemonic masculinity relies on the idea that men are meant to be dominant over women and need to compete with each other. They use terms like alphas, betas, and zetas, which are actually based on a flawed understanding of wolf-pack dynamics to justify their mentalities and create hierarchies based on their relationship with each other and with women. In his book Angry White Men, Michael Kimmel points to the fact that those most likely to fall victim to hate groups like the manosphere are often young white men, disillusioned by modern society, as they lack the money, sex, and power they feel entitled to. They fall prey to many of the most prominent manosphere voices, which include professors, pickup artists, influencers, and even kickboxing multi-millionaires, like our main subject, Andrew Tate. Making a name for himself through the 2010s as a world champion kickboxer and generally controversial figure, Tate became prominent online in January of 2022 when he began marketing a program called Hustlers University. For $50 a month, he promised to teach his followers the secrets to his wealth and success through lessons on crypto investing, dropshipping, and having them recruit more followers through posting outrageous and viral clips.
Have you ever seen a college professor with an S53 and a McLaren and a Lambo and an Aston Martin standing next to a Porsche?
With 127,000 members at some point, it's clear that Tate's influence was massive. But aggressive recruitment of vulnerable people doesn't inherently make something a cult. For that, we're going to look at Stephen Hassan's bite model.
Please listen carefully.
Now, before we look at the bite model, it's important to identify what a cult is, because the definitions can vary widely from person to person. To some, a cult is just an inherently dangerous term. To others, a cult can be any religion. Some even say cults don't even need a specific spiritual doctrine. What we're looking at has also been called high control groups, which is when a cult becomes dangerous because it executes a level of control on their followers that becomes all-encompassing. And this can be identified using Stephen Hassan's bite model. For background, Stephen Hassan was a college student when he was approached by the Moon Organization, vulnerable and alone after being rejected by a former girlfriend. 3 attractive recruiters seduced him into what he would later find to be an incredibly dangerous cult. For 2 years, he was emotionally manipulated, coerced into giving his banking information, and convinced that cult leader Sun Young Moon was the Messiah. Only after visiting his family after a near-fatal car accident was he able to begin the deprogramming process, finally escaping the cult. And this experience inspired Hassan to dedicate his life towards research on how cults execute authoritarian control. He studied psychology, brainwashing methods, exit counseling, and from this expertise he developed the bite model to identify high control and dangerous cults through 4 aspects. So, let's take a look at each aspect, and how Andrew Tate falls into each category. First, behavioral control. This consists of regulating how a person lives. This can mean controlling who they interact with and the things they eat and wear, imposing specific rules with harsh punishments, and exploiting them financially to create a sense of dependence. Andrew Tate exercises control over his followers through Hustlers University. He receives monthly payments from his followers while promising them success with no real guarantees. On joining the program, members join a server where they can speak to financial advisors. Not Tate himself, who you need to spend over $1,000 to talk to, by the way. They teach you about drop shipping and cryptocurrency investing, which is considerably less reliable as a form of money making, and especially not something that would gain you anywhere near as much money as Tate. Furthermore, if you ever want to leave Hustlers University, Tate tells you there's nowhere else to go if you ever want to be successful, further coercing you to stay under his control.
Who messes this up, annoys a professor, doesn't renew their subscription, their card cancels, anything stupid, then you're going to regret it for a very long time because there's simply nowhere else to go.
Information control consists of changing how a follower can perceive their reality. This can be done through lying to them, minimizing the amount of outside information they can receive, and even implanting false memories. Andrew Tate deceives his audience by never making it clear if what he says is true or not. He straddles the line between humor, outrage, and sincerity, to the point it's hard for even his most die-hard followers to tell what's genuine. He states blatant untruths as facts.
Women, because women cannot computate at the level the men do. That is just a statistical fact. There's a
just
whole
so you know, at Google, you're going to say it's run by the people, but I Googled are men smarter than women, and literally every single study says there's no difference.
He still claims that everything he says is 100% real.
His version, but it's all very real. These are the things I say, these are the things I believe. These are the things I talk about in my private networks. I just don't talk about them.
But when he says he'll challenge his son to Mortal Kombat if he's a dork, he's clearly joking, right?
If my son is a nerd, one of us has to die, him or me, and I'll challenge him to Mortal Kombat.
And when he responds to genuine allegations of human trafficking by calling his accuser
Soy,
an internet term based on the false idea that soy increases production of estrogen in the body, you'd think he'd be more serious. By doing this, he walks the line of truth and fiction to indoctrinate his viewers, slowly making them more comfortable with his more extreme beliefs. Thought control is used to ensure all followers think the same, by forcing them to adopt the group's doctrine. They may discourage rational thinking, change their followers' identities, and use in-group versus out-group thinking to reduce their individuality. What Andrew Tate does is invalidate most alternate perspectives on the basis that anyone who disagrees with him is not as rich as him, and therefore someone unsuccessful, who does not know what they're talking about.
The kind of people who are really genuinely upset by what I say are the kind of people who can't truly learn anything and become successful in life.
Yeah.
I obviously know what I'm talking about to some degree, right?
Under this logic, it's impossible to argue with him, and his followers have even picked up the phrase, "What color is your Bugatti?" to decry any of his haters, who do not have a Bugatti and are therefore unsuccessful and too unworthy to criticize him.
I had mixed reviews on the color. Some people said they like it, some people said they don't like it, and I said, well, what color is your Bugatti?
Moreover, he creates an us versus them mentality in how he describes women to his male followers, dehumanizing them, and implying his fans are entitled to sex. That's the emotional control aims to limit the amount of feelings their followers can express. They train their followers to ignore certain feelings, fear the outside world, and feel unsafe, leaving the safety of the cult. Through his lectures, Tate perpetuates the idea that if any of his followers try to find success in the outside world, they will live their lives unsatisfied. He describes modern society as a matrix, a common manosphere metaphor, and even compares most jobs to modern-day slave labor. Furthermore, you can see how he undermines his followers' feelings in the way he treats Aiden Ross, a prominent Twitch streamer he took under his wing, but frequently ridicules while giving him advice.
No, you're a muffin. You need to change it. Well, how many times have you been gym this week? 0. Do you not feel shame, Aiden?
While Andrew Tate may not check every box, the number of parallels which can be drawn reveal something very predatory in how he markets himself. So while Andrew Tate may not be as dangerous as the Kool-Aid drinking suicide packs that come to mind when we hear the word cult, the way he indoctrinates his followers is essential to critique. Throughout the 20th century, there were multiple instances of cults showing up at college campuses, speaking to vulnerable young students and taking them away to find fulfillment living on a commune. While the number of cults traveling across the country has certainly diminished in the 21st century, their presence is still felt. Young men are still just as impulsive and confused, but having grown up with the internet, they believe the answer to their problems can be found online. Bad faith actors who will promise these men success and guidance no longer have to seek out potential followers when the internet will seek them out instead. They've only had to adapt the way they prey on their victims. While this was an examination of Andrew Tate in particular, there's sure to be more people like him, and it's important to stay critical of their tactics, no matter how ridiculous they may seem. Thank you for watching.